I'm really excited about today's episode of Connection Codes because we are talking about an issue that I did not even realize I struggled with before hearing about it. We are going to dive into still face, what that is, how it makes people feel, and why we even give it to begin with, what's happening for that person. And so many of us are giving still faces all day without even realizing we're doing something that's a pain experience for someone else. So welcome to the Connection Codes. This is the podcast where we break open our emotions that take us from being disconnected to connected in our relationships and with ourselves. I am your host, Tara Wages, and joining me is clinical sexologist, family and marriage therapist, Dr. Glenn Hill, and his incredible wife, Phyllis Hill. And together they founded the Connection Codes, which is the science behind human connection. We're so glad you're here.
Yes. Hello, world.
Hi, friends.
Yes, hi. I am really excited about this topic. Well, I say I'm excited. It's also, I have a lot of shame in it, realizing just how much I do that. And so we watched the Foundations course before it was called the Foundations course, I believe, back in March of 2020. And I think you go over still face in around module 2-ish. It's pretty early on. And I can remember listening to you describe it and talk about it and just thinking, oh crap, that's me. I do this all the time to my husband. And so I'm really excited that we are going to share today. That way people can tune in and realize, ooh, am I doing this?
Yeah.
Or is this happening to me continuously? And I don't even know how to tell somebody how it's making me feel.
Yeah. And
Wow.
it's funny because I have sat with so many couples over the years that they've actually been counseled and coached to do that.
Oh, wow.
To be, just to be quiet, just to tune in, to listen, not realizing that, and I don't know who the counselors are that are telling this horrible recommendation, but that's actually making things much, much worse, not better.
Yeah.
Well, what I think about, like with what you're saying about that, is that if you're in your relationship, you're screaming at each other all the time, and that's how you communicate.
Yeah.
I could see a counselor saying,
yeah.
you need to be quiet. And, obviously that you've got an extreme of screaming. Okay, so quieting may be the start of listening. But I know that for me, it's interesting, the topic today, because on our drive over here, I got quiet. I mean, we were both talking a lot back, and a good conversation was happening. And then you said, oh, can I say this? And then you kind of co-opted what I was saying and started saying for you. And then you were like, you wanted me to keep going. And you even asked me, and then I was just like, well, I think I said all I needed to say. But then I got quiet kind of because I was thinking, but what that communicated to you is more of a still face. And so then you're kind of going, what's happening? Did I lose you? And I realized that for me, sometimes, like in that situation, we're so different, and I share probably less often. I mean, everyone kind of knows that you have quite a few more words a day than I do. And so when I get going on something and you co-opt and start talking about your perspective on it, and then you want me to keep going, I realize, no, I think I've said it all, when actually I probably in the moment would have gone further. But I know that that's difficult just in an everyday conversation when I go in and start, having that interflection. Is that a word? Sure, we'll make that a word. But I just started thinking more about it, but I wasn't saying what I was thinking. Then that communicated to him, ooh, I've shut her down. And because it was a still face for him, when really it was just, I went back in and started thinking about it just inside myself. And so I didn't feel a disconnect in it, or I didn't feel that I was purposefully still facing him. I just went back in and started thinking about it in my head. But I know that for him, it became uncomfortable to where he was then wondering, did I shut you down? Did I, derail the conversation? And and it just kind of brought me back out to go, no, I think I was done talking about it. But
Right. So for anyone listening to be like, okay, well, what exactly was happening in that moment? Essentially, a still face is the lack of response. I mean, Glenn, correct me because I know you have way more knowledge in what this technically is.
Yeah. Well, what the research shows is that when you're audible in your response, and that literally is just something like a we call it the ooh. It's just something audible. We now know that it actually tickles the other person's brain differently than if you're totally silent. And again, you could be 100% completely tuned in, focused on what the person is saying. So it's not a judgment on you as the listener, but it just makes a difference. And we know this now that, and every human's unique, so we're very careful to make absolute statements about human behavior. But it affects the other person's brain differently whenever I'm able to cue in. And of course, you hear us on this show. We're all three very good oohers. We're just constantly going, oh yeah. And it just makes a difference in what happens for the other person who's actually talking.
Yeah. So something that I realized in our relationship, mine and Wes's, is that I wouldn't necessarily, I would give a still face when we were in conflict. In fact, early on in our marriage, because I get shut down. If someone is upset, I just shut down completely. And very early on, he got so mad at me that I wouldn't talk to him. And then I wasn't responding. He's mad. I'm not responding. He punched a hole in the wall. Wes Wage is the calmest man alive. Like, he is the most peaceful person. And we were living in the church's house at the time for free.
Wow.
And so he punched a hole in the church's wall. And so I think back of like, wow. And I'm not proud of that, of that moment for myself. But it just shows me the depth of pain that he felt that his wife wouldn't even respond to him. And so I was giving him the message that you're not worthy of my response, which not at all was my intention. My intention was just, I'm shut down. I don't know how to respond, or I'm going to keep my mouth shut so I don't respond incorrectly. But to him, it felt like, he lost identity in that moment. Yep. But then I also tend to do it in these like small moments. Hey, T, what are we having for dinner? No response. Because I'm overwhelmed with fear of like, oh gosh, I have to suddenly decide what our entire family is going to do for dinner, which means I need to take care of all of these things. He just wants to know what's for dinner. And my lack of response says to you, you're not worthy of a response from me. But in reality, I'm experiencing fear. And we're noticing it now with our kids when they give still faces to us. And we always have a word of the week of like, this is what we're going to work on this week. And they know pretty soon we're going to be working on our still face. But even in text messaging, you send a text message to someone, they send nothing back. I'm literally the world's worst at this. Still face.
Well, that's funny that you bring that up in particular, because I just shared with you how I've gotten quite a few no responses lately. And it is interesting how painful that is. Like, I think, wow, they don't care enough to respond. And they also, it's like that no response. I make up so many scenarios, but it's not, like you said, people get busy. I think, isn't that what you said, that sometimes people forget to respond? That's not where my brain goes. My brain goes that they don't care enough about me to respond to me. They don't like me, and that's why they don't respond to me. I'm nothing to them. Like, I can go down a crazy long road of, well, you use the word not worthy very much. Like, I'm too busy. She's not worthy of my response. And, it's just, I mean, I would say that is where my brain goes often first. Then I tend to snap out of it and I copy and paste the exact same message again to that same person. I don't try to rewrite it. I just copy and paste. And so they get the duplicate, and then usually people respond. And, but I have to go through quite a bit of talking to my brain to say, no, go ahead and send it again. And it is amazing to me how much, not just it affects me, but how quickly my brain tells me that, oh, it's because you're not good enough.
Right.
Yeah, and it's worth noting because I don't think we've said this. Just I would encourage people to go if they haven't seen it, or if they haven't seen it recently. To I don't know if you Google or YouTube or whatever,
Yeah.
but to watch the still face experiments with Dr. Ed Tronick, and he started this in the 1970s, and he was just fascinated with human behavior and especially with kids. And so initially, he was just looking at children and children's behavior. And one of the things we say in the foundations is that the still face experiment is not a baby experience, it's a human experience.
Right.
Yeah.
And we forget that because it's easy to look at the video and go, oh my gosh, look at that little 1-year-old. Look what's happening with this little baby. Well, we're just all older babies. There's not a birthday where we change this. Now you're 3, now you're 8, now you're 15. It's different for you now. There's no birthday where it changes. And when I experienced a still face with Phyllis, it's just as overwhelming. I'm sort of not supposed to cry and scream and squeal or knock holes in walls, although some people do, I've heard. But it's the same internal experience. It doesn't change it just because I'm older now because I've had a bunch more birthdays. So now a still face doesn't bother me. It's not true. And Phyllis is perpetual motion. I'd say that a lot. Just she's always busy with something. So if I talk to her, and again, it's important that we stress this is not an indictment of the other. I'm not indicting Phyllis. I'm not saying, well, she's a bad person. She's a bad partner, a bad wife, a bad friend. Not at all. She's busy doing something productive. But if I walk in the room and if I just go, hey, babe, and she doesn't respond, that silence is, I feel like I'm falling. And it's instant. It's not, 30 seconds later. It's in the moment. That silence is just like, oh my gosh, I'm probably going to fall on my face here.
Yeah.
And the other part about this so significant, this is our whole focus with the connection codes, is it gives people language. It gives them the tools to be able to say, as I do with Phyllis, I go, ooh, babe, that kind of felt like a still face. She literally does the 3 phrases. She goes, oh, what happened? What did I miss? Because she's not doing it on purpose. This is not intentional, premeditated. She's not mad at me. I'm just experiencing a still face. And again, it's about what I'm experiencing, not about what she's doing. Is she involved? Yes. And this is why we use the phrase all the time. This has nothing to do with Phyllis, even though it's all about Phyllis. This is about what's happening with Glenn and Glenn's brain. And for me to be able to say to her, that felt like a still face. And the 3 phrases, oh, what happened? What did I miss? And then the negative becomes a positive. It becomes a connector. It's amazing to me to watch this as we connection code. That literally 30 seconds later, this thing that had the potential of being incredibly negative now is actually a connector. It's really beautiful.
Right.
It's interesting. I was thinking, how does this play out in so many ways? And I do think, part of the I appreciate what you just said. It gives us language for something without it being accusatory. Like we so quickly in our relationships point fingers. Like I was mentioning earlier, this week in particular, I sent out an invitation via text to a bunch of people. And, I would say at this point, half a dozen haven't responded at all, not even acknowledged that they got it. And so as I was saying a minute ago, I go through all these scenarios of, they don't care about me kind of thing. And it is a still face experience, and that I have to kind of go, okay, like you reminded me, people are busy, that I need to, but to go back is important for me than to just make all these assumptions and then go, well, I'm not even going to respond to them. I'm not even going to send it again. I'm just going to mark them off the list. They're obviously not interested in my invitation, and they're not going to come. Like instead of concluding that, for me to turn back into it and send it again. And, and then if they still give me a still face, to actually ask the question, are you able to come? And not just draw a bunch of conclusions on my own and then mark that relationship off for the rest of my life or whatever. And I think about, like, even in the car this morning driving over, at one point I got on my phone, which I'm really bad at doing. I have this thought, oh, I'm a multitasker. I'll check emails while Glenn is talking to me. And though you then, especially if you're saying something that you really want me to tune into, you say, are you able to listen? And I realize in that question, you're not accusing me of something. You're not pointing the finger at me and saying, you're ignoring me. You are, emails are more important than me. You don't accuse me of anything. You just asked a question that actually I realize, oh, I don't need to be checking email right now. Like I need to give I don't need to even give a partial still face. Like, because the truth is, I think I'm a good multitasker, but really the person doesn't feel that I am tuning in.
Right.
This summer, I was sitting at the pool with our youngest daughter doing the same thing where I thought, well, I can check email while she's talking to me. And she said to me, Mom, do you have to be on the phone right now?
Yeah.
And I'm like, see, for me, it's a habit. It has become a habit that I think that I can be in your presence and be on my phone at the same time. But it's so helpful for me for people to go, hello, because what they're experiencing is that they're not that important,
Yeah.
that I'm distracted with my phone. And I think in the conversation with my daughter, actually, I said, hey, you mentioned this concert and I'm looking up the dates.
Yeah.
And so then she goes, oh, fun. You mean, Mom, you're actually thinking about, so I was thinking about what she was saying,
Right.
but I immediately went to the action,
Yeah.
which was let's look and see when that concert is and what the tickets are. And so then we were in it together, but that's not always the case. There are times when I'm talking to someone that I just think, oh, I'm hearing you, but I'm also going to check my email, which has nothing to do with the person that I'm
Right.
talking with. And it's a habit.
Yeah.
And so, it's like for me to go, this doesn't communicate the value of the friendship
Yeah.
when I'm on my phone. And I do think that all falls under still face.
Yeah.
Like I'm giving you maybe a partial, but I also think there's a limit to, we've talked not extensively in this moment about the audible response. Well, it's really hard to give an audible response if you're distracted and you're trying to be reading an email and talk and thinking, I'm listening to you, talk to me. Like there's only so much, right?
Right.
And so to realize, okay, that I need to really tune in,
Yeah.
and to audibly respond to everything you're saying. I don't need to be distracted with trying to also read emails. Like
Right.
that doesn't
I do
work.
have to speak up on behalf of my girl because I just want people to know that she's not doing emails talking about the Game of Thrones and I don't know what the other shows are 'cause we don't watch TV. Well, that's the only one. I was going to say Gilmore Girls, wasn't that?
Oh my
forever
goodness,
ago?
let's not even go down that road.
But I mean, the point is, what you do literally is changing people's lives. I mean, you're reaching out to people around the world who have questions about the connection codes, about life, about their relationships. So I just want people to, I think people already know that, but I just want people to know that it's not that you're just goofing off. You're actually doing something very significant, but that doesn't change the effect on the other person.
Right.
Right.
I'm not playing a game on my phone while you're
Right.
talking to me.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm actually, but again, to me, it's still the same. Like I got to make time during the day to check email, but it
Right.
doesn't need to be when I'm engaging in a conversation with you or with one of our children or with friends. And it's like a habit,
Right.
like I need to break that and go, no, there's a time to check email. Nothing is that urgent in our emails. People may think it's urgent, but nothing is urgent enough for me not to tune in. Or, I spend a tremendous amount of time with you, babe, but even for me to say, hey, babe, on the drive over, I'm going to check email. So then what I'm doing so that you, again, don't experience a still face from me, I think
Right.
is hugely important. And, and even with my daughter at the pool, if I had told her what I was doing,
Yeah.
she would have been excited that I was doing that versus feeling like that I didn't want to hear what she had to say.
And I actually think that it's good that you've brought this up because I think that how we are functioning now as a society, that everything we do is on our phone.
Yeah.
I bought concert tickets last night on my phone.
Do you want to tell us the concert?
Death Cab for Cutie on Valentine's Day. I am so excited.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yes.
What?
Death Cab for Cutie. It's like one of mine and Wes's bands. It's that he played a song for me acoustically in a sad moment and like prayed for me. And there's a lyric that says from Bangkok to Calgary. We went to both places
Oh my
for this
goodness.
song. Like it's a big deal. And it's on Valentine's Day here in Nashville. So I'm very excited. But yeah, I do.
Is this a surprise for Wes?
No, he knows.
Okay,
Yes.
okay,
No, I clued him in. And so I do that on my phone. I'm responding to text messages. I'm checking email. I am calling my mom. Everything. I check the weather. So I'm on my phone constantly and order groceries on my phone. And so we are literally looking at our screens so
Yeah.
much,
Right. Yeah.
not realizing that not only is it like, it makes the other person feel like I'm not worthy of you to spend time with me.
Right.
And again, if we're not cluing them in of, hey, I'm going to order groceries and that's why I'm on my phone, or I need to respond to these text messages. Like, I want to be with you. I want to talk to you. Because I think especially my generation and people just even younger than me, I hear it all the time that at nighttime they're in the bed, they're both on their phones. And it's like one of you starts it and then the other one's like, well, I got on my phone because you got on your phone.
Right. Right.
And we don't recognize that it's actually a still face, that is what we are doing to each other. We just think, oh, we're just wasting time and not understanding the implications of what it's doing to someone else. So I'm really glad that you brought up that specific example of a still face. I do it to my kids. I do it to Wes, not even realizing. But then on the flip side, I have guilt because if I'm not on my phone, I'm not responding to the text messages. So I'm giving them a still face. My Instagram messages, I'm giving them a still face. And so it's like, no matter what, I feel like I'm giving someone a still face unless I carve out the time to do it specifically for that. And then I don't let myself get wrapped up in just the scroll.
Right.
Because that's where the problem comes in, that we get wrapped up in the scroll. But a huge part of that is what you said. We communicate to the other person, hey, I'm looking at tickets right now for us, or I'm ordering groceries for us.
Yeah. Well, it is fascinating when you think about just the world we live in right now.
Yeah.
And I was with a couple of girlfriends yesterday, and one of them told me, yeah, I'm not on socials. I just took it completely off of everything. And so I said, oh, so you didn't get any of my pictures from our latest trips to Alaska and California? And she said, no. And I said, oh, I wish I had known. I will send them via text. And I had actually sent her a picture, I think, of, she mentioned that I think Glenn and I were on the plane. And so I took a quick picture of us, and I usually send that to like our kids to say, we're on the plane, love you. You know, well, I'd sent it to these two girlfriends. And she said, it meant the world to me for me to know where you're headed and what you're doing. But even, I think we assume everyone sees everything on socials, and to realize, like, for her, she's just made the decision right now to not be on socials. And so I'm like, oh, I need to always make sure I send her a picture via text so that she knows I'm thinking of her. And, but I think, you know, you brought up an interesting thing, like how we end our night. And Glenn and I just talked about this, and I don't know if it was it was from a movie that we saw the other night. And, but I said to him, man, I'd really like to start reading together again at night. And I think we did this a lot. There were particular seasons, and I think 2020 was one of them, where we were reading just fun books at night. And Louis L'Amour was my mom's favorite, and I've shared in the last few episodes that, you know, she's been gone 8 years, and I inherited her Louis L'Amour collection of books, and they're super short. It's such an easy read, but and especially late at night, like, I love when we read something that I sort of can almost not really pay attention to, like I can almost fall asleep to, but without missing a whole lot. Like, it's not that kind of book. And so, but I love hearing Glenn. He usually reads to me. And then sometimes during the holidays, we'll pick one, like Charles Dickens' Christmas Carol, and he'll read it to me during the month of December.
I love that.
And I just love ending our day that way versus scrolling our phones.
Yeah.
And we just recently made a decision, I think it was in August, to not have our phones near the bed,
Yes.
but put them in the other room,
Yep.
plug them into to their chargers in the other room.
Yeah.
And part of it is because, you just get into this habit of you're both on your phones way past the time you should, because you get scrolling, and before you know it, it's midnight. And then also that's the very last thing you do, which
And the first thing you do in the morning.
Exactly, because it's right there.
Yeah.
And so, we've just made a decision. That's not the way we want to end our day. And we do go to bed at the same time. And I know I fall asleep much quicker than Glenn. And we wake up sadly during the night. And if your phone is right there, I know that, I've had my phone next to my bed for years until just recently. And, in the middle of the night, if I wake up, I pick it up to see what time it is. And then if there's something that's come in, it doesn't matter if it's 3 a.m. I get on my phone and then I begin scrolling. Before I know it, it's 4 a.m.
Yeah.
And then I'm trying to go back to sleep. And it's such a bad habit. But I love even your wording on the still face part of that. Like when and even the way you said it, well, he's on his phone, so I might as well get on mine.
Wow.
But it's in that reaction to, I feel a still face from you as we lay here because you're on your phone. And I rather just fall asleep together, even if that's not how it really plays out, because one person may fall asleep much quicker. But it's just being in that space versus, oh, you're on your phone, so I'll just turn my back to you because of the light on your phone. But that kind of stuff. And just to realize, wow, that is a sad experience for me.
Yeah.
I think that's, I do experience that as a sad experience. And just to be able to have that language too, I feel it as a still face. I feel sad when we're sitting on the couch watching a movie and you're on your phone, then I'm thinking we're really not watching a movie together. But the other person wouldn't necessarily know that. So it's really important to realize you've got to communicate what is a sad point for you, what is a still face for you, because the other person doesn't necessarily have any way of knowing that.
Yeah.
I think we do intentionally, like you were talking about early married life with Wes, which is why he punched a hole in the wall.
Sorry, Wes. I told your story.
Yeah. Well, we love Wes, and he's like a big giant teddy bear, the most precious, kind person. But just to realize that was an unbearable experience.
It was, yeah.
And you were doing it almost out of self-protection. You
Yeah.
were shutting down, saying, I'm not going to open my mouth because it's going to be really ugly, whatever comes out. So you were doing it in a sense to protect him.
Yeah.
But what he was experiencing was so painful that his body's reaction was to take a fist and go through sheetrock.
Yeah.
And it's like, wow, that is our body's way of reacting.
Yeah.
And, even in that, I know I've done that to Glenn many, many times for the same reason. Like, I rather not say anything because what's about to come out is going to make things worse. But if if he says to me, whoa, that's, I'm experiencing a still face, for me to even be able to say, I'm feeling fear that what's going to come out of my mouth is going to hurt you more.
Yeah.
Then clues him in.
Right.
It's not that I hate you so much that I'm not going to talk to you. It's that I feel fear that I really don't know what to say. And so
Yeah.
I'm not saying anything, but it's such an unbearable experience for the other to just stare blankly at
Right.
them.
Yeah, and I was about to say that's part of the power of the connection codes. And I know we're years later, so I'm not critiquing. But in that moment for Tira or Wes, either one, number one, to be authentic for Tira in that moment to be able to go, whew, fear, 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 really getting hit with fear here, or pain, or whatever it is that's happening. And the three phrases for Wes to go, oh, babe, what's happening? Oh, I feel like I'm missing something here. Catch me up. What am I missing? That changes the whole dynamic.
Yeah.
And in reverse, Tira can tell that Wes is getting agitated to go, oh, babe, what's happening for you here? I think I'm missing something. Again, that's our whole positioning as far as the connection goes, is that this is intentional. One of the things that I feel tremendous sadness about when we sit with a couple, somehow they receive the message, and whether we misconveyed or they misunderstood, but that the point of the connection codes is just to absorb more and more crap from the other person and just never react. That the ooh is just absorbing. And I think the connection code, my whole positioning is the connection codes are incredibly, I don't love the term aggressive, but they're certainly proactive. They're certainly very assertive, very intentional, again, almost aggressive, that I'm going to find her. I'm going to track her down and find out what's happening with her. Is she being kind in the moment? Is she being her best self? Maybe not. I don't care. This is my long-term partner. This is my life partner, and I'm not going to let her get lost. We talk with relationships in general, but couples a lot, that we're just looking for one or both of them to be a guardian for this relationship.
Yeah.
I'm going to step up and go, I'm going to protect this relationship. I'm going to slow this couple down, which includes me, and I'm not going to let the cyclone hit. I'm not going to let the cycle speed up. And it's just amazing to me the power of that when somebody will step up and do that. Again, is Phyllis being the best version of herself in that moment? Maybe not. Everybody has crappy moments, crappy days. But in that moment, for me to say, I'm not going to let this couple get knocked off course. I am going to make a move. And again, vice versa, for her to be able to do it as well. One other aspect I want to make sure we cover is, and it could be male or female, but we hear this so much from men that they were trained to give a still face. They think that is strength. And if you think culturally, back to, John Wayne, Clint Eastwood, Dirty Harry, Daniel Craig, or what the heck's the, shoot, I can't think of what's the character? James Bond. Thank you very much. I've seen all the movies, I think 3 times. But that's viewed as strength. That's viewed as, that's manly. He's a man's man. And in reality, James Bond would be the most miserable person on the planet. And I love the movies. I'm not against the movies, but it's not real life.
Right.
But it's very difficult for our psyches to separate that, to differentiate it and go, oh, that's just a fun movie. I like going to them. But James Bond is completely dysfunctional. He would not be able to function in society, but he's a phenomenal still facer.
Right.
Again, as is John Wayne and characters of that nature.
Yeah. I want to point out that I think people can be more prone to giving a still face depending on their environment of how they were raised. You say
Absolutely.
that men were taught, a certain group of men, especially I believe military men.
Yes. And first responders in general.
And first responders, they have to be not cold, but almost cold, so they can do their job appropriately.
Wow.
And then also people that have grown up. I know, Phyllis, you have talked about how you were brought up, and I've shared a little bit of like when you don't have a voice in your house and you're taught to just be quiet, be seen and not heard, and sometimes don't even be seen, then you're more prone to give the still face because you don't feel like you have a voice. And so a part of the connection codes is teaching people how to find their voice in a safe and effective way. So if you don't feel like you can speak, here's just a few words you have to say. I feel like a still face, or I'm feeling sad. It's really, we're not teaching you to give this huge, long dialogue. It's very distinct, very short, but very effective. And so you may be connecting and be like, oh, wow, I am someone that tends to give a still face. And now I can start to peel back the layers of myself and see, where did this begin? Why did this start? And then how can I talk to my partner about this so they can clue me in, because that's not my intention.
Yeah.
I don't want my partner to feel unworthy from me.
Yeah.
And also, I know that we hear from a lot of couples that are a couple of decades in, that there's not necessarily a moment that you feel like your marriage broke. You didn't cheat on each other. You didn't physically abuse each other, even verbally abuse, but you're like, we've grown apart, or I don't feel seen in my relationship. I don't feel heard. They just don't care about me. Oftentimes it's these small cuts. A still face is it's not a huge, which for Wes in that moment, it was a huge jab in his belly. But oftentimes it can just be these small cuts over time that make these gashes inside of us. And after years and years of receiving a still face, you think, my partner doesn't even love me. Why am I here?
The other day we were sitting with a couple where he is a very successful businessman, owns quite a few companies, and he's coming to the realization as he's watching the Foundation's masterclass, that he has functioned at home the same way he does in business, which means in business, especially running multiple businesses, he tells people what to do.
Yeah.
And he also doesn't explain himself. And he really, it's like he's solving problems all day long. So he comes home thinking, okay, I see a problem. I'm going to tell someone, I'm going to tell my wife how to fix it. I'm going to tell my child what to do. And so he's basically coming home with that same mentality that he's doing at work.
Right.
And of course he's not getting very good responses, and he's realizing that like he has really caused pain in his family.
Yeah.
And he was just saying, he called it a hat. I have to put on a different hat. And it is true that at times we have to realize that the way we function in one environment, like at work, and just like you guys were just saying, a first responder, well, at work, you do give still faces. When you go into a situation that is an emergency,
Yeah.
you don't react the way that you need to with your own family.
Right.
Like it's a very different scenario if you're in the military. If if you're a doctor and you're in the middle of surgery and you something is going wrong, you do not let the person know in the moment. Like you have to give a still face.
Yeah.
You have to hold it together. And it's just the realization though that with the relationships closest to us, we can't be giving still faces.
Yeah.
And I think too for the listeners, because for me, I just believe, and of course for you that have heard enough about our story, Glenn was always the outward appearance, like his emotion. He wasn't. We always said he was the emotional one. Well, what that meant was that he showed emotion. It wasn't
Right.
that he communicated emotion well, but he showed emotion. I was the still face, and I thought, okay, I'm holding us together, so that's my job. Well,
Right.
then, through the connection codes and through learning all these tools, I had to learn, okay, wow, I am giving so many people a still face, not just my husband and not just my kids, but my definition was I am the strong one.
Yeah.
And being the strong one, I don't show emotion. And of course, I didn't even think I had emotion. So if you're as a listener going, whoa, people never know what I'm thinking. People never know what's going on. You can change this about yourself. You
Yeah.
can become an audible listener. You can, the ooh is simply the title of audible listening.
Yeah.
Doesn't actually have to literally be ooh. I don't know that I ever say ooh. I think I say and ah and wow and I hear you and I get that. And I say that's my audible listening now. And I think that to have hope, and I'm almost 60 years old. So people often say, well, I'm too old to learn that. That's not true.
Yeah.
We are never too old to learn anything. And we've shared this many times. Glenn's mom, she's 95. She lives with us. She inspires all of us because she's learning new stuff all the time.
Yeah.
Like technology, she has it's hilarious to me. She has her iPhone, she has her iPad, then she has another iPad that she uses, one for reading all of her books that she reads. She uses a different iPad for checking her email and all of her social media stuff. And it's just like she never holds back. She drives a Tesla, which you have to learn. It's a different type of automobile. And she's like, I'm going to learn.
Right.
Recently she said, I think I want to go back and get my doctorate. And we just hold our breath over that one because it'll
You oohed
take
her. I'm
Oh,
sure.
we oohed her. We definitely oohed her. But it's like she knows that part of her brain needs to stay active and alive. And the way to do that is to learn new things.
Yeah.
And so if you're listening today going, I can't do this, I'm too old, you're never too old to
Right.
learn. Matter of fact, your brain needs to be activated with new learning, and these tools work.
Yeah.
And so it's like, wow, I can change this about me. Yeah, you can change this. You can become an audible listener. If you are a still face business owner, you can change that. You
Yeah.
can become someone who interacts well.
And I do want to touch that real quickly as far as business, because, and there certainly are, Connection Codes language, you call it the stunt double. There are times when it is 100% appropriate to be a stunt double. Just like you say, a doctor's in surgery. I don't want him to go, fear, fear, fear.
Right.
Things are not going correctly. But in business, and with this couple the other day talking about this, and he was really intrigued by that. He said, I could see how this would change my businesses where I'm actually using the connection codes in business. And now my people become smarter. They become more involved in actually solving the problems, which is very, very true. That makes a huge difference. Because it's easy for us to go, oh, well, we compartmentalize business is different than home or family. It's actually not true. There's no question there are scenarios where the stunt double is appropriate, but it's remarkably far fewer than we think that it is.
Yeah.
And one other aspect I want to make sure we cover, at least touch on, is giving a still face to yourself. It's amazing how when we tune into ourselves, when we're present with ourselves, and the still face and the wolf are kind of opposite ends of the spectrum as far as connection codes language. But being present with yourself, and I've been amazed with myself just the last several months, last year or so, at what has happened. For those of you that don't know the popcorn story, go back and listen to that episode. What happens for myself just to tune in and find out what's happening with me, and it has changed my life so much. Even things like getting in the water. When we go to the beach, I've always been the slowest water getter in the world. And processing that pain and tuning into my own body going, ooh, yeah, I feel pain. That cold water hits me. And it's amazing. And I don't dive into the deep end yet, but I'm 10 times faster getting into the water than I was just a few months ago because I don't still face myself. I don't resist my own energy. I embrace it. I welcome it and go, oh, yeah, that's a pain experience. Pain. Wow, that water feels really cold, which is a pain experience. And I speed up. It's fascinating to me to watch myself as a science experiment because I'm like, that's bizarre to me. And all these years, I mean, I'm 61 years old, many, many decades that I've been the slowest person to get in the water because of the pain experience. And I've just begun to not still face myself, but to be present with myself, follow my own energy. And I get in the water a lot faster now.
Right.
It's crazy.
Yeah. That's a really good point. Before we go into the core emotion wheel today, I want to point out that, again, if you are recognizing this in yourself or your partner does this often to you, it is 98% of the time not from a bad heart, if not even 99%. It is often just something that we do as a reaction that we don't even realize we're doing. As we're talking, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I read a text messages a few weeks ago. I was in the middle of getting ready of a friend telling me she's pregnant and I have not responded to her. I deeply care about this person, but I thought, oh, I've got to do that later because I have to get out the door. I'm running late. And so it is not from a bad part, but we still need to acknowledge it. It's so important that we acknowledge it in ourselves. She's a connection coder. So I'll be able to text her and say, I'm so sorry for that still face. That was not my intention. But when it's happening to us, for us to clue our partner in. When Wes tells me, hey, T, that feels like a still face.
Wow.
Oh, man, I am so grateful he says that.
Right.
Because I do not want to bring him pain. I never want him to feel like he is not worthy of my time, my attention, or my voice.
Yeah.
And so when we clue each other in, that is so connecting. You mentioned that earlier, that moment now becomes a connector for each other.
Yeah. I can't help myself because I'm a connection code purist.
Yeah.
If you contact your friend, instead of saying, sorry, that was not my intention, but just to say to her, I feel a lot of guilt about that. I really missed on that.
Totally.
Dang it. I got busy and I just overlooked responding to you, and I feel a lot of guilt about that. That's so connecting. It's not wrong to say I'm sorry, and it's not even wrong to mention intentions, but it's kind of irrelevant. And I don't know your friend. I don't know what happened for her. She may not have even noticed, but she may have felt wounded.
She noticed.
Okay, well, there you go. So,
We all notice. I mean, you notice.
Yeah.
I just don't know the situation, but just to convey to her your core emotion, and you go, I feel a lot of guilt, and a bit of a shame because I wasn't the best version of your friend. Because the best version of your friend would have responded quickly, and I totally missed on that. And in saying that, I haven't apologized yet. But it's very, very connecting language.
Absolutely. So now we are going to go into the part of the episode where we do our core emotion wheel. And that is where we go through each emotion and share what is happening with us most recently when we felt that emotion, or if we're doing an issue specific wheel, what emotion we feel around that topic. This is where you really hear the audible response. That's the only response given when each person does it, is we ooh them through it. It's not when we defend ourselves or state anything else. this is a great opportunity to listen to the opposite of a still
Right.
face.
Yeah, and it doesn't even matter if what the person shares is accurate. What they're sharing is accurate because they're conveying their emotion in it. The facts that are under it may not be at all accurate or true, but I don't really care. I just want to hear what's happening with my friend.
Yeah.
Do you want to go first?
Sure. So are we doing an issue specific?
No.
I got confused there.
I don't think so.
Okay. So, for me, well, the first thing is just joy because we're having a sex date tonight. And that's just so intense and wonderful. And it's amazing to me just the thrill of that, which is a plug for late night. Go get late night. You'll love it. The masterclass. Anyway, let's see. A bit of fear, just with all the stuff that's happening. You know, I think I get hit with fear a lot. Just that I'm missing stuff. And trying to keep up with our private practice, sitting with people, making sure we're on point with them because we affect people's lives. This isn't a casual, haphazard, lackadaisical thing at all. I felt some sadness in a session yesterday. This couple that it's just maddening. I've seen him a number of times, and we're used to people taking off quickly. And when they don't, it drives me nuts. And then I get hit with guilt because I'm like, what am I missing? I must be misconveying for them. A little bit of shame in that at times too. Like, how are they missing it so badly? And is it something that I'm doing? I should be good at this by now. I've been sitting with people for a long time. Let's see, where am I? Hurt. When's the last time I felt hurt? Probably with you, I would think. But I don't think of anything real recently. A week or so ago, when we missed each other real badly. Oh, I guess the conversation about the movie screening that we had seen.
Yeah.
And I felt some hurt in that. And let's see, loneliness. My loneliness is kind of always the same. If I'm struggling connecting deeply with you, I feel some loneliness, but also just the loneliness of this massive undertaking that we're involved in. Just trying to figure out how to connect with people with bigger and bigger platforms to get the word out because we have found the cure for relational cancer and we want to change the world. And I'm really old, so we have to hurry up and get it done. I don't have that long left. I've lost count. Am I close to 8? Anger. I feel a lot of anger about that because we're going to do this and we are doing this and there's a lot of joy in it, but anger, like, dang it, we've got to get better systems. We got to get everything set up, get it in motion because we have to get this accomplished.
Wow. So good. All right. Joy, going to the movies last night was so much fun with 2 of our girls and a friend, and it was a fun movie. So that was really great. So a lot of joy in that. I think even in this talking about this topic, I think shame for me is that I am not quicker to grow and make change and learn things. Like I think even the fact that we just since August have had our phones in another room, like that should have been years ago. You know, that I think our phone probably is one of the bigger pain points for us, you know, so it's just shame about that. I think guilt in how much, like when things are happening for me that it hurts you. Like I feel guilt in that. Like I know recently we've kind of had several days in a row of just me expressing what's happening with me, but then it really knocks you over. So I feel guilt in how that is playing out lately. Wow. I feel fear in just kind of perhaps not knowing the next step. And I know we're getting close, but like what should we focus our time on? I feel fear that we are missing opportunities that are really big opportunities. So fear in that, hurt. I think hurt, and of course with you, that's usually the category, and just how when I'm trying to figure myself out, when I am trying to be curious about what's happening with me, the hurt is that often you make it about you, and I get that, but I feel definitely hurt in that. Sad. I've expressed sad just being so aware lately of my mom. It's been great to be able to process that. So today I don't feel that sad. I think the sad for me, as I expressed earlier, is when people don't respond to me, and I've sent a bunch of invitations out lately. So that would be my sad. Lonely. I think my lonely is in being the one in our relationship. I think I made myself the one who is the task person, and so I've taken on so many things, and I in a way I think that's affected you in the sense of that you just know I'll take care of it. So I've become more authentic in saying to you, what a big deal. Like all these little tasks, I know I've made it look easy, but they're not easy for me. And I feel lonely at times in just all the tasks that are before me. Let's see, anger. In that, I mean, I feel anger that early in our married life, I thought I had to be the rock of Gibraltar, and that I had, because I always saw you as so unstable, that I thought, no, I just have to be steady. But what I created was a world where I wasn't being authentic, and so I looked like everything came easy to me, and it really didn't. I just did it to survive. And so I feel anger in that I've finally in my late 50s am beginning to go, actually I feel a lot of fear in that. And I do it anyway, but I feel a lot of fear in that. And that's kind of been a big deal for you to realize, whoa, I don't know that about you. And so I feel anger that I've allowed that I created a world where I wasn't authentic. Is that all of them?
Amazing.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's great. One of the things I love about y'all sharing, especially when we often do an issue specific, whenever we're talking about a specific topic, but so often there are business owners that are listening or people that are working closely in business that they don't get to hear the emotion behind starting and running a business. And y'all share so vulnerably, like the fear and the loneliness. And so often whenever we do just a generic it's about actually growing your business and the connection codes. And I think that we always view, or we see these businesses that are like, oh, they're just automatically successful, and you don't see what's actually happening behind the scenes. So I love how authentic that is for people to hear.
Thanks.
Like just the amount of work that goes into it. And so many emotions go into everything that we do. And I love that y'all share that. So if you are listening and you're like, wow, I mean, this is a concept that I really haven't heard, or I haven't heard in this way. This is really the tip of the iceberg in what we talk about in the Foundations course. This is one of many lessons that can transform your relationship, and that can change from having these small cuts that become these big wounds to creating like a whole person that can communicate without having these big, long discussions. And we just wear each other out.
Yeah.
We either wear each other out by these long discussions or by nothing at all. Like that's exhausting. Experiencing someone not talking back to you is exhausting for someone. And so you can go to connectioncodes.co/foundations course and use the coupon code podcast to get 20% and dive into that course today. Start now so you can actually get these tools quickly and do the least amount of damage to each other. We often talk about when we are in conflict, it's from past damage. And so the sooner you begin this process, the less damage you can experience in your relationship. So we are so glad you are here. To every person who has already left us a 5-star review, thank you so much. And if you haven't, whether you're on Spotify watching and listening, on YouTube, or on Apple Podcasts, please go in and leave us a review. That is, not only is it incredibly helpful in the algorithm to help us grow, but it puts a little flame in us. It inspires us to continue to share and continue to be raw and real and share our lives with you. So please go and do that and share this with a friend. This is something that applies to a business person, to a relationship, to how you respond to your kids. this lesson applies to everyone, whether you're married or not. So please share this. And thank you for being here.
Yeah, I do want to say to everybody just the hugeness of this, especially with Christmas coming up. This is always true, but let me tell you something. You buy somebody some socks or a toaster for Christmas, that's not wrong. It's not bad. You can do that, and that's great. And hopefully they'll say thank you. You gift somebody a copy of the Connection Codes book. You gift them a master class. We have a long list of people that they just do that all the time. Every few weeks, they email us and say, "Oh, I gave this to my cousin. Oh, I gave this to my neighbor. Oh, I gave this to my friend." Because some people, number one, don't know about the Connection Codes. Number two, maybe don't have the resources to do this themselves. So make this a gift, and they will thank you. Certainly for the next year, probably for the rest of their life. This will change everything. And I just want you to know that you need this.
You deserve this.
So
let's do this.
Let's do this.